Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Depressed CEO, and this is Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 13. So, past few videos, I've been kind of mentioning all the issues I've been running into with this season, essentially with the meta. Now that I'm kind of been losing against even tank push boxes, which is what I used to be good against, I decided it was a good time to go ahead and change things up a bit and see if I can make things better. It's going to change again for the next week because there's going to be new characters coming out, but this is kind of just in preparation for that. I did drop Yulia, unfortunately. She just doesn't perform that well. There are characters that can self-res and pump out the damage a lot better than she can, and her aura that reduces mobility and guard. There's going to be a character coming very soon that can do it a lot better as well. So I decided to go ahead and swap her out for Marielle. Not only does Marielle have the ability to bypass guard, though it's a little bit situational, it's a self buff rather than an aura, and it's not an aura debuff. So I don't have to worry about Rose and Seal for things like that, or multiple tanks for that matter. The other thing is she's a flexible character. She has the ability to heal until she goes into offense mode, essentially. She's a bit squishy, kind of like Yulia, but she's definitely nowhere near as squishy as Yulia, I guess I'll say. The other thing is her commandment does give her some reasonable durability, so she can kind of hopefully take hits from assassins and things like that. I brought back Sylvaria, mainly because I really enjoy using Sylvaria. I like the sniping stuff, even if she's fallen off a bit, or, never really was in the meta. She is strategic faction, and the upcoming character is going to have strategic faction buff, so that'll hopefully give us a little bit of flexibility. Also, Lightbringer does have the ability to do strengthen, which also gives me a bit more flexibility as well. I ended up also dropping... who did I drop for this? I honestly don't remember who I dropped, and that's probably a key factor here. Actually, give me one moment. I dropped Shafaniel. Shafaniel has kind of fallen off. I mean, I like her mass dispelling and stuff like that, but against characters like Lightbringer, it definitely does not work as well. And if I really need dispels, I have plenty of other characters that can do it. Maybe not as an AoE, but really the dispels are mainly just to try to disable tanking anyway, or guard buffs anyway. So I didn't really want to rely on Shafaniel. The other issue is she's kind of all in on the AoE stuff. She doesn't have like the flexibility of other characters have, so I went ahead and dropped her. And then the other character I dropped was Sissy White. I do like using Sissy White. I think she's a pretty cool character, but I'm frankly not that good with her. In most situations, I try to use her other abilities that she has access to, like being able to destroy all troops and things like that, which should be really useful, but I couldn't get it to work the way I wanted to. And as a healer, she's not that good at it. I do like the ability to summon like additional guards and things like that, but again, those were kind of just one-offs and they only last for so long. So I replaced her with Elma, and Elma is definitely very good for AoE boxes and things like that. The main issue I've been running into as far as AoE boxes are concerned is the way it works is they'll ban Rose and Seal, like our opponent did just now. And then, even if I were to rush and pick a healer right now, if my opponent was going to just try to eliminate as many healers as possible, they just ban the other two healers anyway. So it's either they ban Rose and Seal and then ban two more healers afterwards, and then I have to take a healer, or they ban Rose and Seal, I take a healer, and then they ban the remaining two anyway. So it definitely... I needed other characters that could provide additional, either passive healing or additional heals. So Marielle, of course, Kyura, Girl in the Shell, depending on what she rolls, and just trying to get as much flexibility as possible to be able to handle multiple types of boxes without having to go focus on, all rush or something like that. Anyway, sorry for all the rambling. Like I said, there's a lot of changes to the box, and I've been trying to... This will be a bit of growing pains as well, because I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to play it now. But in any case, my opponent here is, speaking of, is a rush box. Teleports, mobility, polyol. We're starting to see polyol more often now, which is kind of which is to be expected. She's very good for AoE rush. She can also guard and self-res. She can only guard against physical, though. But yeah, a lot of single target assassins and some AoE. Not a lot of AoE, though. So I went and got rid of Polyol because she's a really nasty AoE that can provide additional mobility while attacking. I take Lightbringer. They go ahead and get rid of Elma right off the bat. So like I mentioned before, they got rid of the two primary threats for AoE boxes, Elma and Rosenziel. So it's just like you're kind of stuck. And if I had taken a healer right then and there, they would have just banned my 2 tanks instead. So lost Sword and Light and Shadow. They take Sword and Light and Shadow. Got rid of Jintoki, got rid of Rotham. Got Liana here, because I had to take a healer at this point. And they start banning my long legs and long range, essentially. They take Wedam. So at this point I was like, alright, well I need to get rid of their assassins and get rid of their teleports and other AoE nonsense. Take Muriel. I go ahead and take care of my Auden Kelmo and my Ironblood Commander. And then they take Sherry. I ban some of their healers and act agains and mobility. I take Azusa. And then, as you can see, I got down to Savaria and another healer at this point. I could take an additional healer, but I really wanted to play a Savaria, so I took Savaria. And then my opponent did take Archon in the Moon, which is actually kind of dangerous, because I don't really have a way of countering the pull that he does. And then got to get to deal with Helena here. Alright, so it's been a while since we've used Marielle. One of the main things is she does have access to Holy Guard mages, so that gives her a lot more flexibility as far as troop choices go. So I'm not stuck with going either infantry or spears. I can now bring Holy Guard mages and not have to worry about losing buffs, really. The other option for her is like Zealots or Redeemers. Redeemers don't really do well for offense. Zealots are okay. But if you don't have any buffs, which back when I was using her, I didn't really have access to that many buffs for her. Zealots actually are kind of a liability at that point. Holy Guard mages, the only thing is they get bonuses when they're attacked and forced into battle. So it's pretty helpful. Besides that, Azusa standard kit. Oh yeah, for Marielle, I went with just her standard kit. She does have her exclusive weapon. Liana here, standard with Act Again with 3C. Lightbringer, I did bring Strengthen for Sylvaria. I also brought Phalanxes. For Sylvaria, a new thing is she has access to Arc Assassins, which do have a bonus to attack, which is pretty helpful. And then, let's see, crit increases. Yeah, they have increased crit damage when engaged in an enemy that has less than 100% HP, which, since I have Twilight Star on her, is usually guaranteed. And then for her, since I don't have to bring her global buff anymore to buff herself, I went ahead and brought Disarm, since I can now be buffed with Strengthen from here. Oh, and I need to look at their stuff. So, Wedam, single target spect, Helena with Angels, pretty much her standard stuff, 3C, Chivalry, Petal Storm, Sword and Light Shadow, all heavy hitting single target. Archon in the Moon, of course, has his pull and his ability to self-res and Tidal Surge. And then Sherry here brought Shadow Raid. Shadow Raid's not going to be that big of a deal. Majority of my team is very durable. The only person that she will be able to really kill is Sylvaria. Anyway, I'm kind of spreading out a bit to kind of try to mitigate the AoE that's going to eventually come, as well as to kind of mitigate the massive amount of debuffs I'm about to get hit with from Helena. Alright, so for those who don't remember, Sylvaria currently has the range bow, which makes her have 10 range with her Valkyria Flash. So her Valkyria Flash goes all the way to this point. So Helena, technically I can hit Archon on the Moon. It's hard to say if I would have done better. Okay, so yeah. The biggest concern I have is even though Helena has no buffs, she is in her own terrain, which does give her damage reduction. I don't really know enough about Archon the Moon to say if I would be able to one-shot him. I think I could have. Yeah, he has less defense. I think the main thing, though, is... let's see, that's 10, 9, 8, 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, no, it's 9 range, so I would have been able to attack him directly. So yeah, they're spreading out too. So I do Ode of Creation. I actually put this on Sylvaria, which is honestly a mistake. But so the big issue was if I put up Strengthen, I wouldn't be able to do the faction buff and guard right now. So I went ahead and just decided to go ahead and do Ode of Creation instead. But that also means that Lightbringer is now vulnerable to debuffs. So I put up this. Yeah, so you can see everyone's spreading out here. So the choice I made was I went after Helena. I was mostly curious to see if I would actually be able to kill her. And with crit, I was able to. Welcome back to the team. But here comes this. So I do have Commandment up on Marielle. Commandment reduces damage by 25%. But I do take damage from the pole itself, so I do lose the damage reduction from my holy troops. Not that it mattered, he had Ragnarok. And then he's just going to hit me for a ton of damage. So even with the Commandment, he was very easily able to kill my troops. Well, kill everything, actually. Which of course gives a teleport point for Sword and Lane Shadow. So the other option I could have gone is I could have shot Archon. I wouldn't have been able to get killed because he could self-res. Yeah. But if I had done that instead, he would have self-res with 10% health. And then at that point I would have been able to probably take on... Yeah, I think he probably would have... It would have been a trade at that point, which would have been... It still would have left Helena on the field, which would have caused a bunch of debuff shenanigans. But at that point, I would have maybe possibly not lost Marielle there. So I move in. This puts me outside of guard range, unfortunately. This was not a smart move. I should have waited. Because yeah, this is gonna happen. So I'm gonna get double tapped here, which is gonna break my damage here. Yeah, so we do kill each other, but she's gonna self-res because of her exclusive, and then heal back to full because of her 3C. And since I don't have the gospel effect on Lightbringer right now, I'm gonna end up getting the debuff that prevents me from self-resing. So with all this and Wedem's still action coming, there's not much I can do here. I'm just gonna get annihilated. And I think I went for heal because I misread this. I thought I didn't see the part where it said cannot be dispelled. I only saw the PvP mode stuff. So yeah, you can't dispel it. I could have done a heal. I mean, either way, I was going to get kind of screwed. Yeah, even if I had done an act again, Lightbringer would not have lived long enough to do anything, because here comes this. So Shadow of Elazar. Also, I just suffered 10 dispels here. Yeah, so I lose Lightbringer. Yeah, and I give up at this point because one, I'm two units behind. I killed one of their units, they killed 2 of mine, but I lost my tank. And the biggest issue is Sword and Lion Shadow. There's plenty of spirits around, so even if I get a kill on her, she's going to self-res and pick up one of the spirits nearby. And then they'll just kind of gradually whittle me down. So yeah. But I did get to show off Silvaria, which was really the only point I did for this video. That and I used this particular battle just to show off explain the new box setup. So far, not so good. Alright, well, let's keep trying with this box. See if I can do a bit better. So our opponent here has a pretty cool box. It has only 3 male characters in it, and a bunch of characters you don't see too much anymore. You see Illustrial here, we have Silvaria and a Silvaria portrait. We got a Alicia here, and yeah, just a kind of a nice variety. For the most part, it seems to favor assassinations. So there's a lot of characters that can bypass guard, some more situational than others. And then the rest of it's kind of just kind of a more of a standard tank push with assassins. And Alicia, even though she can't bypass guard, she has the grenades, which allow her to manipulate positions, which can be helpful. For the most part, they went ahead and, well, I'll go ahead and just go on with this. So my opponent does open with banning Sword and Lion Shadow, which is pretty standard. I banned theirs, because I didn't really want to deal with that nonsense again. Take Lightbringer. They go ahead and ban my assassins at this point. And they open with Liana just right off the bat. So they really want their act again. So at this point I banned theirs. The 2 main assassins, a turn 2 Silvaria with an act again is very, very dangerous. You can't teleport or move or displace Silvaria when she's in sniper mode, but you can act again her. So essentially what happens is if you allow Silvaria to get move into sniping range, and Liana hasn't used her act again yet, it's pretty much you're just giving her the shot at that point. I have characters that can probably tank it, but I didn't really want to risk that. And also, I hate dealing with Epsilon, and now that I don't use Shafaniel anymore, I definitely just don't want to deal with him. So I go ahead and take Marielle, who is kind of my last guard bypass. They start banning some more of my holy characters. They take Kyura, who is actually holy, so her intelligence is not as high, but she does have different gear options. I went ahead and banned one of their tanks. So yeah, I went ahead and banned Hilda because of her ability to negate crits. And I got rid of Lucretia because she's generally the most dangerous caster, especially against Lightbringer, because her 3C does extra against Holy. So go ahead and take Ironblood Commander at this point, because I'm figuring this is going to be a slugfest. And against Christiane and Landius there, I shouldn't have too much issue as far as punching through it. I go ahead and get rid of one of my healers at this point and get rid of Lucretia. Takes Christiane, not too surprised there. With the amount of casters I have, it kind of makes sense. I go ahead and get rid of Illustrial. There's not too much, there's a decent amount of grass and forest in this map, despite it being mostly a winter wonderland. But also, I just didn't really want to deal with any potential shenanigans that will catch me off guard. Obviously, I didn't want to deal with Jintoki. Surprisingly, my opponent was not one of the ones that picks Jintoki first. At this point, I took Girl in the Shell. I wasn't really thinking at this point, because obviously I was like, oh, I'll just take Girl in the Shell. She doesn't get buffed by Lightbringer. So the only way I can buff her now is if I give her a Strengthen, which is a little annoying, but not the end of the world. That does leave me with 3 healers and a tank, so I'm kind of safe at this point. For the most part, I'm not too concerned about what's remaining in the box, and I can probably make any of these healers work if I need to. So they go ahead and get rid of Frozen Seal and Elma, and they take Alicia. This was probably the best case scenario. Yeah, I think this was the best case scenario because Sophia can actually do her Sophia buffs on Girl in the Shell there, so I don't have to solely purely rely on strength then. So Alicia, at this point I got rid of... Who did I get rid of? I got rid of the remaining healers, because I didn't want to deal... Oh, that's right. Yeah, I wanted to get rid of the remaining healers, just to put more strain on Liana. And they go ahead and take Tensei Jessica there, so that was completely fine. Alright. So, nothing new with Marielle, Iron Blood Commander, Sophia. Sophia, I did bring Rewind, because I don't have to really worry about AoEs here. Lightbringer, I brought Phalanxes and Strengthen again. Girl in the Shell, I did swap her AoE for Dark Reaper, because I figured I was just going to be blasting away here. And then Alicia here did bring her grenades. So this thing's a bit random. The reason I never really used the grenades much when I used Alicia was because it's just too random. It can push anywhere from 1 to 2 blocks from its center point. So if you're dealing with like a standard tank formation, which is the cross shape, and you hit the center, there's a chance that you'll just only push 1 space away, in which case they'll still be in guard range. Or, you know, if you're lucky, you can push them 2 spaces, and then they'll be outside of guard range, and maybe you'll have to hope it's the character that's already acted or can't move again or anything like that. So it's kind of awkward to use, but if you do get it to work, it definitely give you an opening. Christiane here is Cavalry. She did bring kind of the standard setup with Angels. I have a decent amount of magic. Marielle has magic troops. Iron Blood Commander herself does magic damage, but her troops are physical. And then Girl of the Shell is, of course, all magic, and Lightbringer's also magic with physical troops. So it's a bit of a mix here. Light of Genesis surprisingly did not bring Strengthen. Instead, opted for Holy Light, which is kind of odd because this setup is kind of odd. The Princess faction buff only applies to Christiane and Liana. Liana did bring her 3C, so she can give someone a Gossable style buff. But beyond that, Kyra did not bring a Gossable, so really out of the 3 offensive characters, only one of them is going to be able to be buffed. Unless they get lucky with a Tenyo buff or something like that. So that definitely limits their offensive options. Anyway, besides that, Kyra, Holy Class with Sorceresses, all the guard bypass skills, Light of Genesis with Sorceresses, and then Liana, Shrine Maidens, Act Again, 3C. Alright, I did pass turn with Marielle. I was kind of hanging back to see what my opponent will do. Obviously, they have access to a teleport. Kyra has very high mobility, and Alicia has really weird movement that can get where her allies can push her further. So, with all that in mind, my opponent does take advantage of the high mobility that the Cavalry class provides for Christiane there. So she's already 2 spaces away. She's practically at the center right now. So I don't know if the intention was to tank push or not to the middle. So I went ahead and just set up my formation, and right off the bat, Tensei Jessica went ahead and teleported Kyra within striking range. I have not put up a faction buff yet, so this is a little bit more vulnerable. But right now, Kyra doesn't have any buffs either, so it's kind of a trade-off. At full HP, the Holy Troops will provide 30% damage reduction. Commandment, as I mentioned in a previous battle, it does 25% reduction, so she can actually tank quite a bit. Also, as Holy Troops, they tend to tank magic a little bit better, though in this case, not so much. But yeah, most of these characters should be able to actually do okay against this. So I went ahead and took this opportunity to go ahead and get my buff up. Worst case scenario is Kyra could go after Girl in the Shell without any buffs. But Girl in the Shell is set up to reflect damage, so there's a possibility it would be a trade at that point. The only thing that kind of sucks is right now Girl in the Shell's range is shorter than Kyra's, so she wouldn't be able to counterattack. But for right now, it looks like they're holding back, so I went ahead and fell back with Girl in the Shell. The buff I just got on the 3C is it does fixed damage before battle, which can be helpful for breaking things like sorceresses. But the main reason why I fell back was if a Kyra did want to attack, and she happens to have the range staff, she would have to go here to hit Girl in the Shell, and then she can only teleport to here, which is outside guard range. So I figured potentially be a trade there if I needed to. But my opponent decided to go ahead and do 3C first, so she's now buffed up. I go ahead and cast a heal to get the Sophia buffs up. So the magic buff is only 20%, not 30%. But it doesn't really matter, because my opponent decides to go after Marielle, who's the tankiest of the bunch. Doesn't even get through the troops. Like I mentioned before, it's like 55% damage reduction. She didn't have any fixed damage, so she didn't have what is it, Twilight Star. So with that, I was like, all right, well. So I do make a few mistakes here. I'll start with the obvious. So I move in. I wanted to go ahead and take this opportunity to see if I can take out a unit. So I did get the self heal from Enduring Faith, and then I can move 2 steps. What I could have done is I could have moved up in the forest, which I think would have given me some additional defense even while attacking. But I decided to attack in place instead. Now the key thing about her 3C is if it gets guarded, she gets additional damage buff, and her next attack will bypass guard. So commandment breaks off. I bypass guard, and I was 259 damage short. So my opponent's going to go ahead and run through the unit. Run through again. Get her talent buff. Dispel all of my buffs. And I'm not at full HP, so yeah, and I don't have commandment anymore, so I don't have any damage reduction. So flat out kill there. Alright, so at this point, I think I have range staff on Girl in the Shell, so if I want to... Oh, I guess one thing to note. When I did the 3C with Marielle, I did dispel 3 buffs, and I did dispel the guard range buff. So right now, Kyra is not in guard range, but it doesn't really matter because she's only at 259 HP, and conveniently, one of the spells I have active right now is Tornado. I had Tornado and Thunderstorm, Thunderstorm available. Thunderstorm reduces defense and does extra damage to cavalry. Tornado does extra damage to flyers and reduces attack and intelligence. So debuffing attack and intelligence meant even if they did try to do a counterattack, they would be far less effective. Mainly I just did to do some extra damage. The damage buff I just applied to my 3C is it's the Lucretia one, which does all of Lucretia's 3C debuffs. So that'll be helpful in the future. Since we're not dealing with Rose and Seal, it'll actually apply those debuffs, and since the 3C is gone right now, the only thing that's really going to happen is Liana can possibly dispel some buffs, and or dispel some debuffs, and that's about it. In any case, I went ahead and moved in. Just doing some damage, nothing too serious. Was mainly just trying to get Girl in the Shell back into guard range. So I don't know what the plan here. I don't know if my opponent just forgot that Christiane doesn't have guard range, but yeah, moving here actually moved her outside of guard range of everyone, which was not smart. So with that, I was like, all right, well, I don't have anything to worry about, so I'll do rewind just to kind of get closer, essentially. 3C, she has no attack buff. In fact, I think she has... No, actually, I think she had an attack buff, didn't she? No, she had a damage dealt buff, and I think that was applied because of Liana's talent with her was it talent with talent with 3C. Anyway, so with that, I take some damage, not a big deal, because Liana's outside guard range. Now, something I always forget about Shrine Maidens is they only deal with physical damage. They don't do anything against magic, which Ironblood Commander is all about the magic. So I take out the healer. So it's 3 on 4. They did Grenade Blast, which in this position makes no sense. It literally does nothing. Even if it got the 2 proc, Light of Genesis blocks here and Sophia blocks here. So it didn't get anyone out of guard range. I think the only reason this was done was just because she was already moving into range. And Grenade actually has a really low cooldown. So next round she can just do Righteous March and do it again. not a huge deal because I can just go and do my 3C. Alright, all buffed up. So, passes. So yeah, this is just kind of cruel at this point. At this point, I'm able to just overwhelm my opponent with just raw damage. With Iron Blood Commander and Golden Shell and a little help from Lightbringer. But the Rewind did refresh her exclusive skill, the one that gives you random spells. And the random spell I got that time was Blizzard, which most people don't really use Blizzard anymore, mainly because characters like Liana and Rosenseal and Hilda exist. But since Christiane doesn't have innate mobility resistance, I can hit her with Blizzard, give her mobility down, and negate her guard completely. As well as do some damage. I don't remember what the Voyage upgrade was. I think it was just like heal after attacking or something like that, based off damage. So yeah, she teleports Alicia away. Gets another attack off to do some damage and healing. But since guard is down, I went ahead and just dealt with Tensei Jessica first. I was in no rush to deal with Alicia. And then I go ahead and just move in, reapply guard just because of the rewind. So at this point, I think just now her 3C has finally got off cooldown. So she can start reapplying buffs again. But at this point, it's kind of too late. All my stuff's on cooldown, but I can still attack in melee. So I move in and just wipe her out. And then I go ahead and debuff her to the ground using Lucretia debuffs. I was actually really impressed with the damage from this 3C. I think it's like 1.3 times damage. But with no buffs and the 30% debuff, it just shreds her, even with the angels. Yeah, so needless to say, gives up at that point. So yeah, kind of neat. I did try to consider if there was a way if I could have gotten kill with Marielle. If I had gone with a more physical troop choice, like, you know, Valkyries, or not, sorry, not Valkyries, Amazons, like Amazon Champions or Elite Soldiers or something like that. The problem is if I used those troops, they would have probably gotten shredded completely by Kaira's spell. So it's kind of it would have been a trade-off either way, I think. And there's not really much gear-wise I could have done to possibly do more damage. I guess the only way I could have done possibly more damage is if I had brought like a Twilight Star. The accessory she has right now, I think, is the one that does extra damage against Holy. So even then, I was still doing extra damage to her. So, or sorry, extra attack against Holy. So, but still, got to show off Girl in the Shell and see what her shenanigans could really do when you get a bunch of random spells that work out really well. And yeah, pretty good. So far so good.